Have you ever stopped to think that what you see around you, what you feel, basically everything you call real, isn't quite a perfect picture of the outside world?
Right. It's much more like a movie that your brain is constantly producing.
Exactly. Like directing, editing, adding special effects, the whole deal. Today, we're doing a deep dive into how our brains actually construct that reality. And some of the research is, well, pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. We tend to assume our senses are just clear windows,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But the science shows it's way more involved. Our perception is an active interpretation.
Influenced by all sorts of internal stuff.
Precisely. Beliefs, expectations, what we happen to be focusing on. So our mission today is really to unpack those filters, those mechanisms. The goal is to get a bit more aware of how this all works.
And yeah, you should definitely expect a few aha moments, maybe some surprises.
Absolutely. Because the sheer volume of information, it's just immense.
Get this. Our senses are pulling in something like 11 million bits of information every single second.
11 million. It's hard to even wrap your head around that number.
And yet, our conscious mind, what we're actually aware of, it handles maybe 50 bits per second. 50.
Yeah, it's a tiny fraction. So clearly there has to be a massive filtering process. You just can't process it all.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose with, I don't know, a coffee stir. Most of it just washes past.
Exactly. And that filtering isn't random noise reduction. What gets through that sort of mental checkpoint is heavily shaped by what we already believe, what we expect, what we're looking for.
So this is where things like selective perception come in and selective attention.
Precisely. They act like very strict bouncers at the door of our consciousness, deciding who gets in.
Right. Like you see with sports fans, maybe. Watching the same game, the same controversial call.
Oh, definitely. One fan sees a clear penalty, the other sees a dive.
And both are absolutely convinced they saw what really happened.
And neither is necessarily lying. They're just experiencing a reality filtered through their team loyalty, you know? That belief becomes a lens.
So beliefs are like these lenses. But it doesn't stop there, does it? The brain uses shortcuts too. Cognitive biases.
Yes, exactly. These biases are mental shortcuts, evolved to help us make sense of things quickly and efficiently. But the downside is they can also twist our perception of reality.
The brain's trying to be helpful, but sometimes it messes up. Like confirmation bias.
Classic example. Confirmation bias is our tendency to notice, search for, and remember information that confirms what we already believe.
And conveniently ignore anything that challenges it.
Pretty much. You believe a certain herbal tea works wonders, so you vividly remember the times you felt better after drinking it, but you kind of forget the times it did nothing.
Guilty as charged.
Okay.
What about the anchoring effect? I hear that one a lot in, like, negotiations.
Oh, yeah. Huge in sales and negotiation. The very first piece of information you get acts as an anchor. It heavily influences any judgments you make after that.
So if a car salesman shows you the super expensive model first,
then the next one, even if it's still pricey, suddenly seems more reasonable in your comparison. It's all relative to that first anchor point.
clever and sneaky. And then there's the negativity bias. Why does bad news seem to stick so much more?
Yes. Our brains seem predisposed to give more weight to negative experiences. It's probably an evolutionary thing. Noticing threats was crucial for survival.
So one critical comment outweighs 10 compliments.
Often, yes. Or think about how one really bad day can just overshadow a whole week, even if lots of good things happen. It's like Velcro for the bad stuff and Teflon for the good.
That makes a worrying amount of sense. Okay, so what's happening inside the brain during all of this construction work, neurologically speaking?
Well, it's definitely a team effort up there. The prefrontal cortex, the bit right behind your forehead, plays a huge role. It integrates all that incoming sensory data with our existing beliefs and expectations to create a coherent picture.
The sort of executive director of the reality movie.
Kind of, yeah. Damage there can really mess up someone's ability to interpret the world coherently. It takes the sensory input, checks it against memories stored partly via the hippocampus, and...
What about emotions? They must play a part.
Oh, absolutely. The limbic system, especially a little structure called the amygdala, adds the emotional flavor. It tags experiences. Is this important? Is this threatening? Is this pleasant?
So a certain smell instantly brings back a strong feeling. That's the limbic system linking the sense and the emotion.
That's a perfect example of it in action. And speaking of memory, the hippocampus isn't just a passive storage vault.
Right, you mentioned memories get reconstructed.
Every time you recall something, your brain isn't just playing back a recording, it's actively rebuilding the memory. And subtly, it can change it in the process.
Wow. So our current beliefs can actually reshape how we remember the past.
They can influence the reconstruction, yes. History, even personal history, is constantly being subtly rewritten.
Okay, this is fascinating. If we want to actually see the brain constructing reality, maybe even catch it making a mistake, illusions are the way to go, right?
Exactly. Perceptual illusions are fantastic because they're like little glitches in the system that reveal the underlying processes. They show the brain actively interpreting, not just passively receiving.
Like the classic one, the Mueller-Lyer illusion, with the lines and arrows.
Precisely. 2 lines, exactly the same length. But add inward-pointing arrows to one and outward-pointing ones to the other, and suddenly one looks much longer.
Even though you know they're the same.
Your brain can't help but interpret the lines in context, using cues that usually help judge depth and distance, but in this case, lead to an error.
Mind-bending. What about that invisible gorilla experiment? That one always gets me.
Simons and Chabras. A brilliant demonstration of inattentional blindness. You ask people to watch a video and count basketball passes between players in white shirts.
Simple enough.
But while they're focused on counting, someone in a full gorilla suit walks right through the middle of the scene, thumps their chest, and walks off.
And people just don't see it.
A surprising number, yes. Because their attention is so narrowly focused on the counting task, this huge, obvious gorilla becomes effectively invisible.
It's not just about missing small details then. It's about how our focus literally creates what we perceive or don't perceive.
Yeah.
Like looking for your keys while they're in your hand.
Exactly. Our focus dictates a surprisingly large part of our perceived reality. And then there's pareidolia.
Seeing faces in clouds or toast.
That's the one. It's the brain's tendency to find meaningful patterns, especially faces, even in random noise or vague stimuli. It shows how strongly programmed we are to impose structure and meaning onto the world.
It seems like attention is really the gatekeeper here.
It's a crucial tool. Think of it like a spotlight. It illuminates certain parts of our sensory world, leaving others in the dark.
Like the cocktail party effect. Being able to focus on one conversation in a noisy room.
Yes, that's selective attention at work. You filter out the surrounding chatter. But interestingly, if someone across the room says your name,
your attention snaps right over there, even though you weren't consciously listening.
Exactly. It shows the filtering isn't perfect. Some things still get through if they're deemed important enough. And research by Nilly Lobby on perceptual load is relevant here too.
Perceptual load, what's that?
Basically, how much your attention is already occupied. Her experiments show that when our attention is heavily loaded, like when doing a difficult task, we process much less of the surrounding environment. Our perceptual world shrinks.
So the busier our focus, the less we actually take in from everything else.
Pretty much. We have a limited bandwidth.
Yeah.
Which brings us to divided attention.
Oh boy. Texting while driving comes to mind.
A dangerous example. Trying to split attention between demanding tasks doesn't just make you worse at both, it literally creates blind spots in your perception. You might look but not see the car pulling out. Your reality becomes fragmented.
This really changes how you think about things like eyewitness testimony in court.
Absolutely. The legal system has increasingly recognized how subjective and reconstructive memory is, and how easily perception can be skewed by attention, bias, or stress. Testimony isn't infallible proof anymore.
And it must have huge implications for therapy, too.
Definitely. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is largely based on this idea. It helps people identify and change negative thought patterns and attentional biases that shape their experience of reality, especially in conditions like depression or anxiety.
So you're kind of helping them redirect the spotlight.
Yeah.
And re-edit their internal movie.
That's a great way to put it. And philosophically, all this points towards something called epistemic humility.
Epistemic humility. Sounds serious.
It just means recognizing the limits of our own knowledge and perception, understanding that our view of objective reality is always filtered, always incomplete. It encourages being a bit less certain, maybe a bit more open.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom about our biased brains. Understanding this actually gives us some power, right? We can try to expand our perception.
Yes, absolutely. Awareness is the first step. Practices like mindfulness, for example, are all about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. This helps you observe your own filters and automatic reactions.
Like watching the director at work instead of just watching the movie.
Exactly. It can lead to a richer, less biased perception. Another key thing is actively seeking out diverse perspectives.
Talking to people who disagree with us. Reading things that challenge our views.
Yes. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's one of the best ways to spot our own biases and blind spots. It adds different lenses to our view of the world, enriching our own construct.
And you mentioned counterfactual thinking.
Right, just the simple act of asking yourself, what if my interpretation is wrong? What's another way to see this? It encourages mental flexibility, stopping us from getting locked into one interpretation.
It's like exploring alternative plot lines for your reality. So these biases and filters are happening because of how the brain processes info using shortcuts.
Precisely. And if you're keen to dive even deeper, there's some great reading out there. David Eagleman's Incognito is very accessible on how the hidden brain shapes things.
And Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow is a must-read on biases, right?
Definitely a classic. For the social side, John Searle's The Construction of Social Reality is fascinating. And Antonio Damasio's Descartes' Error brilliantly links emotion, reason, and reality construction.
Any more technical suggestions?
Well, Jacob Howey's The Predictive Mind gets into the brain as prediction machine idea. And there are key papers, too, like the original Gorillas in Our Midst study, or work by Friston on the free energy principle, or Nagel's famous What Is It Like to Be a Bat? About subjective experience.
Wow, plenty to dig into there. So wrapping this up, the really big idea seems to be, we're not just living in reality, our brains are actively building it.
That's the core takeaway. And seeing it that way isn't disempowering. It's actually an opportunity. We can develop what you might call advanced metacognition.
Being aware of our own awareness, thinking about how we think.
Exactly. Consciously observing and refining those reality-building processes. Understanding the filters, the biases, the limits. That's the key to potentially expanding our view.
So we can build a richer, maybe more accurate, and hopefully more shared reality with others.
That's the potential. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
How so?
Only by realizing our reality is a construction can we start to see beyond its immediate limitations.
Moving towards a deeper, more nuanced understanding. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is, take a moment today, notice your own filters. What are you automatically focusing on? What might you be missing? That awareness, that's where expanding your reality begins.